Hi, my name is Mary Wong, and I'm a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncturist in downtown Toronto, founder of Alive Holistic Health, and author of Pathways to Pregnancy. Can you see it? Here we are. And tonight, I'm so honored to have Dr. Lee Hollander Rubin with me because in my book, I actually mention your research. So really, instead of me talking about it, I would much prefer that you speak to your research that you've done. And so just a little bit about you before we go into your research and how we can help women and men conceive. Dr. Lee Hollander Rubin is a doctor of acupuncture and oriental medicine, licensed acupuncturist, member of ABORM, which is the American Board of Oriental Reproductive Medicine, is a clinician, international academic, and published researcher specializing in reproductive medicine, women's health, and female sexual pain. In practice since 2002, she is passionate about supporting patients through their family building journey. She spent more than 5 years managing an acupuncture program at Western Fertility Clinic. Her most recent study found an increase in birth outcomes associated with the addition of traditional Chinese medicine to in vitro fertilization. Dr. Hollander Rubin currently resides in Portland, Oregon, and practices at the Portland Acupuncture Studio. And we will put down your website and whatever else you want to put on. In fact, you could type that in as a comment on the either like during the live post, probably better after the live post. And so you practice also at the Oregon Reproductive Medicine. So welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show. And I know you have just finished work. So really, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
So, well, let's get right to it. Let's talk about your study.
Great. You want me to start from the beginning?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so I worked at an IVF clinic for several years, and as part of my doctoral program, I looked back at outcomes to see, is Chinese medicine having an impact on people's outcomes? So we looked at over 1,600 patients' pregnancy outcomes as part of an IVF process, and we looked to see, did Chinese medicine have an impact on improving or having no difference on the pregnancy outcomes. So what we found was when women added Chinese medicine to their IVF, they were associated with a twofold increase in the odds of live birth. So basically that means that we compared them to women who did not add Chinese medicine, and we also compared them to women who just did acupuncture on the day of embryo transfer, and they had a significantly more live births than the women in those other two groups. So basically, in the small scheme of things, it looks like adding Chinese medicine to IVF could have a positive impact on their outcomes.
So let's break it down very specifically so the audience knows what is traditional Chinese medicine. So what does that encompass?
That's a great question. So the way that I defined it in the study was that traditional Chinese medicine is a multimodal intervention. It includes acupuncture, which can also include electroacupuncture, moxibustion, which is the warming of an herb over points or on points. It can include cupping or tui na. It can include Chinese herbs and dietary and lifestyle recommendations. And we only use Chinese herbs if they're absolutely appropriate, but it's a more complex intervention, not just acupuncture alone.
So then speaking about that, so did some of these women use Chinese medicine, herbal medicine, while they're doing stimulation of IVF drugs?
Did they use Chinese medicine during the stimulation cycle? Yes. All of these cycles were fresh IVF cycles. So these are women who went through ovarian stimulation, had the retrieval, and then had the transfer all in the same cycle. And they added the whole system of traditional Chinese medicine to it. Not everyone got Chinese herbs, but most everyone got acupuncture. They got dietary and lifestyle recommendations, and they may have had electrical stimulation. There were specific rules that we would apply for women whether or not to add Chinese herbs. So like if they've never had an IVF before, then we did not give them herbs. But if they failed in the past, and we talked to their doctor, and everything was okay, we went ahead and added it.
During their stimulation. That's great, because of course that's a very common question. Oh, can I really do herbs while I'm taking drugs? And so let's talk a bit about that. Like why, I think we're cutting out. Oh, you're back. Okay. So, why would we, and how safe is it to use herbal medicine while you're using hormones?
That's actually a really great question. I am really concerned about the safety of adding Chinese herbs to a controlled ovarian hyperstimulation, or basically when you're taking like Minipure and Follistim. So I have rules that I've applied and that I teach to lots of different acupuncturists across the country, and that is that if a patient has never gone through a stimulation cycle before, do not give them herbs while they're doing that. If they are if they've never had a failed cycle, I wouldn't add it on. And then the third reason is if I have not had the opportunity to communicate with their physician to tell them that we're going to add them in so that we can track it together to make sure that we don't hyperstimulate them or prevent the development of the eggs. Because we can actually have a very good benefit as long as we're being monitored very closely.
Right. And then that's full disclosure. I mean, you want that nice integrative communication, right? That's great. That's very helpful. And so then let's talk about what conditions, or do you think any condition is helpful for people doing acupuncture and Chinese medicine? Oh, you know what we didn't talk about? How much time frame before starting IVF? And in fact, I would even go further on and say, I know we're speaking about your research, but, wouldn't we also include those that are doing IUI, meaning insemination, or what I call the turkey baster technique, or those that are just starting out, they've just gotten off their birth control pill and they're ready to go. I would say, let's start any old time. What do you say?
I think we don't have enough information to say specifically where is the best time to start the acupuncture. But what we do know is that at least 9 to 12 sessions prior to the embryo transfer has been shown to have the best benefit so far. But we need more research. We don't exactly know. The other thing we could also say with good confidence is when you're thinking about ovarian function, it takes about 3 months for eggs to develop from the time that they are selected for development to the time that they're ovulated. So it'd be good for us to have an influence on that process with Chinese medicine as they prepare for the IVF.
So then in your research, doesn't that, I would say, kind of allude to that anyway? Because the percentage of population that chose to do TCM prior to their IVF, wasn't there a higher rate of a certain age range or a certain population that just naturally went towards TCM?
So we actually don't know what makes people choose Chinese medicine, but we do know when we look at the information about, when you look at the demographics of the patients that participated in Chinese medicine compared to the women that didn't, they tended to have more failed cycles. They tended to have poorer fertility in general. So they had higher FSH and fewer eggs at the time of retrieval. So it looked like they actually had poorer fertility when they got to see us.
Right. And then the outcome was surprising because these people who had poorer response or, more of a dismal fertility diagnosis were the ones that benefited more greatly, right? And had a better outcome.
So yeah, it looks like from this small, it's a nice cohort. It's a cohort of almost 200 people. I'm sorry, not 200 people, 119 people. We can see that of that particular group, this is a group of women who looked like they had fertility that was not as good as the rest of the people in that cohort.
Okay, great. So then, we love talking about women, but I always find that men are always lost in this mix. Mm-hmm. So how about men? Would you agree, or would you think that they would benefit doing TCM and acupuncture prior to any kind of treatment or IVF here?
I think that they're easier to treat from my personal experience. I think we need more information about how effective we are on improving sperm parameters, because we can see, like in our own clinical practices, that we see improvements in sperm count, sperm motility, for morphology. We don't see a lot of research that's sort of showing what we see actually in everyday life and in the real clinical world. I have recommended that men come in when they have varicoceles, when they have low sperm count, when they have poor morphology, to try and improve those parameters and help improve their outcomes with IVF with their partners.
Okay, great. Now, going back, so we're looking at age groups. So can you tell us a bit about the optimal age group in terms of us affecting IVF outcome through TCM?
Both myself and some other researchers have looked at our group of women that have added Chinese medicine to their IVF and looked at their pregnancy outcomes, how likely were they to become pregnant by adding that. And then we tried to look at, okay, well, what specific age groups responded best? And what I found in my cohort was roughly the 38 to 40-year-old women had the best response to adding Chinese medicine to their IVF. So it really helps them have an increased odds of live birth.
Okay, I think that's very
having a baby, taking a baby home.
Yeah, that's the most important, because I always say, there's no point in getting pregnant if you're not taking home a baby. So this stuff really works, right? Okay, great. So tell us, what's next for you?
I'm also working on female sexual pain. So I had just finished a pilot study looking at acupuncture with lidocaine to treat provoked localized vulvodynia. So I'm getting ready to present those outcomes at a major congress in Argentina, and we hope to have the paper published in next year.
That's really, really awesome. And that also affects directly, a lot of women who are having issues with pain. It's difficult to have intercourse, never mind any other kinds of intervention when trying to conceive. So it's a very important piece of work, and I would love to have you back and you can talk to us more about that specific research article as well. And there'll
I would love to. I did want to go back and just say one more thing about the research regarding adding Chinese medicine to IVF. This is not a randomized control trial. It's observational research. So we can't say that the Chinese medicine caused something, but we can say there's an association that by adding Chinese medicine, it was associated with better birth outcomes. So more women had more babies because they had added Chinese medicine. But the thing I also wanted to say is that we didn't talk about implantation rate or biochemical pregnancy rates. So in this particular study, the women that added Chinese medicine, if they got pregnant, they were more than likely to stay pregnant. They had significantly fewer biochemical pregnancies, which I think is really important, so that if implantation happens, typically it's going to stay.
That's exactly very, very important indeed. Is there anything else that you want to add in about the study and what your observations have been?
I think the other thing I would just say is that when you're considering the type of cycle, also looking at if you're doing a donor cycle versus a non-donor cycle, we also saw a twofold increase in the odds of live birth in women who were doing a donor cycle. But that group was a significantly smaller number of people. There were only like 21 people in that group compared to the other groups. So I always take that one with more caution, that outcome with more caution. But I feel really confident in the people who had the fresh IVF with their own eggs, that we did have a positive influence on their outcomes and improving their outcomes.
Absolutely. So, I'm not a researcher. I'll call myself an experiential scientist because I love science, really. And so we see pregnancy outcomes, positive pregnancy, and take-home babies. And certainly we have seen increase in that, but I didn't pull the data like you have. So it's really great that you're doing this important work because, scientists and the medical community at large, of course, identifies with research, and you're out there doing it. So really, thank you on behalf of our whole community of Chinese medicine practitioners, as well as for all of our patients who are advocating for TCM while they're doing IVF. And I don't know what percentage of women are experiencing or hiding from their reproductive endocrinologists that they're trying acupuncture or herbal medicine. I think more and more people are knowing about it, but I still see some women that say, oh no, I can't tell my doctor I'm doing this. And it's a shame, right? Because then they don't really know our impact on what they're doing.
Right. I'm really fortunate to not have to I work with clinics that are not that way. They're very open and supportive. In fact, I think living in the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest of the United States, we have a very more open relationship with biomedicine between the Chinese medicine and the biomedicine practitioners.
100%, yes, but we are definitely in the East Coast and we're way behind. We're starting to be more integrated for sure, but it's more like tolerance versus let's like fully be on board and fully integrate. I'm trying to create that cause out East here, so we'll see how we do.
Keep working on it. It's really important work. Please do.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I think that would be it. So a quick recap would be that acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine, which includes herbal medicine, moxibustion, cupping, lifestyle and dietary habit changes, like looking at all that prior to an IVF cycle. About, what was it, 9 to 11 sessions of acupuncture?
Sessions plus 9 to 12 sessions plus the day of embryo transfer acupuncture. Because when we look at the literature, it does kind of look like that acupuncture just on the day of embryo transfer is not enough to improve birth outcomes. And I actually would agree with that. I think we're looking at too little of a dose of acupuncture. It's like you can't expect your hypertension to be solved with one, treatment or one pill that you take one time and then it's taken care of. I think we need more. I think we need to have more intervention that's over a specific amount of time to help support patients improve their outcomes.
Well, and I think that's the most important takeaway because, of course, a lot of people are knowing about that study, the pre and post embryo transfer acupuncture session, and really that's not enough. And so let's all, consider doing more acupuncture prior to, for 3 months ideally, maybe even longer really, coming from TCM perspective. But, at the very least, 3 months prior to doing your IVF. Now, for those of you that are actually going through an IVF, don't panic because to me, some form of acupuncture prior to will be helpful. So if you're just starting your stimulation and adding the acupuncture piece in now, fine. Let's just deal with where you're at and not panic about, oh my goodness, I should have done it 3 months ago, right? Any comments about that?
I totally agree with you. I think that we should always try and support you where you're at. And you can see an improvement just with a few treatments. And if it does not, this is what I often say to patients, like if this isn't the cycle, if this isn't the one where you get pregnant and it's a sustainable pregnancy, let's try to work together earlier before you start your next cycle.
Exactly. Yes. And that's where we end up going when those people have their failed cycles, if they have a failed cycle, right? So again, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I think everyone has gotten a good bit of information and hopefully walk away a bit more empowered and hopeful about what they can do. And so thank you for joining us. And this is like a surprise add-on post. This is my live post number 50. I can't believe I've gotten here so far. Yeah, you're like number 50. It's like a really marketed event, really. So we're doing a double header this week. Sorry?
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's crazy. So I took a couple of weeks holiday and I didn't post, but then when I asked you to come on my show, I'll call it, you said I can't do it on Wednesday. I'm like, what the heck? Let's do a double header. So tonight we're doing one. And then on Wednesday night, I have the privilege of interviewing Lisa Marie, who is the founder of Fertility Friday. She does weekly podcasts on Friday about anything fertility related, which is awesome. So we'll talk to her about that and about fertility awareness for those who are just starting out to trying to conceive. And then next week, I believe I am interviewing the author of Not Broken. I just read that one. So Dr. Laura Shaheen, who is so awesome. And thank you for that thumbs up. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. And, there'll be lots of other things. And please check out my posts in the past. And as Lee mentioned, she'll type in her website so that you can get in touch with her. Can people get in touch with you directly if they want to? Or is that going to be blasting you too much?
No, there's a connection on my website, which I put on a comment over here, but I'm not sure that you can see it. So I will put it perhaps underneath it on Facebook.
Oh, great. You know what? Someone actually said something. I wasn't even paying attention, but I don't see yours yet. So I think you already typed in your info.
I think I'll have to do it on Facebook. I don't see it.
Facebook after. Yeah, that's okay. So you can type it in all after and people will find it, which is awesome. And then I think that's it. So please check out my other posts. Buy my book, Pathways to Pregnancy, which you will find at any Amazon, bookstores, Indigo, Barnes & Noble. And check out my website, marywong.life. And we shall see you Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks and have a great night. All right, how do I, here we go. Okay, ended. There we go. So that was good. Let's see. That was 20 minutes.
I still see live.
It says